session is going to be focused more on hips and low back. And like I said, if you have some form of yoga block or tennis ball, lacrosse ball, those will be the great props to use in today's session. Couple tips with your stretching that I want to go over is a lot. When we're stretching, it's to really calm the nervous system down. It's to lengthen to a certain degree of our muscle fibers, but ultimately it's to bring our breathing also into play. So if we are breathing very shallow, if we're very stressed while we're doing our stretching, you're really not going to get much out of your stretching session. So make sure when you are doing your stretching, you're really taking the time to think about your breath. And so before we start, I just want to go through how I recommend breathing. That's that whole diaphragmic breathing. And so when you breathe, you want to make sure if this is your rib cage here, you want to inhale, you want to breathe wide. So as we inhale through our nose, we're going to inhale as we're expanding our rib cage. We don't want to chest lift, because if we chest lift, that kind of throws us into that lumbar thoracic type of extension, and we don't want that. We want to keep low and stacked over those hips, right? So if I'm inhaling through my rib cage wide, I'm going to then exhale through my mouth, and you want to envision maybe blowing out that birthday candle or blowing out into a balloon. And as we do that, you can notice how maybe our abs start to engage in doing that. And when we engage those abs, that kind of repositions our ribs, and that neutralizes the spine. So that's number one with our breathing. When we're stretching, when you are stretching, every time you exhale, you want to think about getting maybe a little further into your stretches or moving further into those stretches. And that will also give you that blood flowing into those areas. Always kind of know where you should be stretching, where you should be feeling it. It shouldn't be excruciating or a lot of discomfort. It should be just enough where you're feeling the tightness kind of starting to relax. With right now everything going on, everyone's sitting so much, that I think stretching is definitely necessary, because we're definitely tightening and stiffening up our muscle fibers. So this is a great way to doing stretching. Know that stretching is not always the answer, and knowing that a lot of the stretching that we do needs to be complemented with the strengthening component, but we'll get to that another day. This is just more of a way to get blood flowing, to release that stiffness from all of that sitting, and we're going to start standing today. So we're going to start standing. If you do have that ball handy, I'm going to have you use that first. If you don't, no big deal, we'll get right into it real fast. But a lot of times, a lot of our stuff comes from our feet, right? So we want to make sure that we're rolling those feet out first. That's a really big foundation of what we do with our bodies and getting sensations and things like that. So rolling out our feet is really great, especially into those arches, moving our toes around and things like that, because another thing is we maybe wear shoes too long, and that stiffens up those feet as well. So rolling out those feet and just going along those arches. You can do circle patterns, you can do cross fiber patterns up and down, and things of that nature. And you don't have to spend a ton of time on this. So everything we're going to do today is anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And feel free to pause me at any time if you are watching me on the tape, that you can go longer or anything like that too. This is your stretch routine, so make sure you make it your own. If something doesn't feel comfortable that we're doing today, don't do it. Go into a stretch that you feel comfortable doing, and that's something that you enjoy and makes you feel good too. Okay, so we are going to start with a forward fold today. So we are just going to hang first. Make sure that your head is dropping down. Don't try to look at me right now. I want you to just let those arms completely hang
your head completely hang. And just focus again on your breathing. So inhaling wide, exhaling through the mouth, blowing out that birthday candle. You could sway a little bit from left to right as you go through that. And one more breath here, and then you're going to come into halfway lift, soft knee bending here, placing your hands onto your thigh. What you want to do here is really push into your thighs so that you feel your spine really lengthen. Once again, inhaling wide. As we exhale, you're going to go right back into that forward fold. We're going to go back into that whole breathing pattern. So as I inhale once again, I'm going to bring those hands to my thighs, elongate my spine, exhale, forward fold. One more time, big inhaling, halfway lift. And exhale, forward fold. Another option you could do in your forward fold sometime is just crisscrossing or bending your elbows and thinking about also pushing down with your elbows as you go into that forward fold. Sometimes I think people put a little too much stress on that upper body when they do that. So if that is the case, just go ahead and make those arms fall forward. All right, so kind of got that back to loosen up a little bit. You're gonna go ahead and come into seated position. And with seated position, there's so many options. So some people really have a real hip dump position. So if you know you're one of those people, you could always grab a blanket, a pillow, or anything that will lift you up, okay? So sometimes I do feel like that, and so I will like sit on a yoga block or anything like that. So feel free to do that today as well. So we're gonna start just by giving our right knee or left knee, doesn't matter, we'll do both sides, a big hug here. And so right now I'm just not letting my heel touch the ground, but I'm lifting that knee up towards my chest, really kind of fanning it up. And as I fan that up, I'm gonna then let it kind of fan back down. And I'm actually gonna be doing that in more of a circular pattern. If there's any pinching into the inside of the knee, you're gonna wanna hold on to the ankle, and you're gonna do more of an upright position into this position here, and then you'll, I think, have less pinching there. So again, inhaling as we come in, exhaling as we come out, and just kind of doing that into a very small and mild circular pattern. And we should feel that fan right into the glute and into a little bit into the hip. Again, if it's pinching, just go ahead and maybe sit up a little bit more also. And then, or we could also add that ankle and kind of just circling in that position as well. And what we might find as we do that, we might have started really stiff and there was no way anyone thought that they could maybe get that foot to the ground. But now, all of a sudden, just by doing those little rotations, we have found ourselves getting that heel to the ground. And so if that heel can touch the ground, I want you to do that now. And if you can't, you could just move your foot a little bit further away from your body. So finding that position that you can keep pretty tight again to your body. Again, no pinching, so then you would want to move your foot further away. And we're just gonna do gently twisting, okay? And again, when I twist, I'm gonna pop and lift up that chest even further than what I was just doing in my seated position. This one I'm gonna hold and I'm gonna work on that breathing pattern. So inhaling and exhaling. Every time I inhale, you might find that you might get a little bit further or deeper into those poses and stretches. Stay elongated in this position. And it's okay to readjust every time you breathe. One more here. And release out of that. Good. Slowly coming out of that one, we're going to do the same thing other side. Again, if you find that you're hip dumping, make sure you prop yourself up. Taking that other knee, once again, we're kind of lifting it up and circling through. Lifting up and circling through. And this second option would just be keeping more of that ankle and circling through here, just warming up more of the hip than getting necessarily into that glute. Once we do this about 3 to 5 times, we will find hopefully our heel being able to be touched onto the ground. And then we go ahead and turn, making sure that that elbow's to the outside of that knee, twisting back. Again, sitting up really proud. Big inhale and exhaling. Breath here. Slowly intertwining yourself, coming out of that position. So getting those ribs to turn a little bit also helps move that spine and helps release some pressure sometimes on that low back. The next series we've done before, if you've worked with me before, and this is called the number 4 wave. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna take your right or left. I'm gonna start with my right in front, so that way if you wanna follow along by cueing, make sure your right foot is in front and that your left leg is in back. Where you position your left leg is really just depending on how flexible you are. So mine is directly in line with my hip, while others might be a little forward and others will maybe be further back. Again, we're gonna really try to elongate our body. Everything is gonna be a proud chest as we lean forward, but I'm not trying to lift and flare my rib cage out. I'm just lifting upward and trying to sit up straight, okay? So I'm gonna reach forward as far forward as my body allows me to do until I feel a good stretch. So for me, that's about here. And then I'm gonna slowly drop to my forearms. If you can't get there, your hands will be just fine, okay? So again, I'm just kind of positioning here, making sure nothing's pinching or feeling uncomfortable. And then as I move, I'm gonna walk my forearms to the right. So I'm going over that front knee. And I'm gonna walk until I feel a stretch, maybe in my left hip flexor, or also maybe in my little side obliques. It might be really stiff and sticky into my ribs, so you might feel that first, while others might feel it into their front hip flexor. You do want to think about pulling your left hip forward so that that starts to open up that front hip flexor. Once you find your position, you're going to hold that there. You're going to take a big inhale. And as you exhale, you're going to take your left arm and you're going to reach up and over your body. Really as if you're trying to reach for something over your head. Big inhale here once again. As I exhale, I'm gonna close that up. And maybe you wanna take even an extra breath there, and that's okay. And then once I've closed that up, I'm gonna see if I can maybe walk a little bit further, and it seems a little bit easier to do that. So I'm gonna take another step with my arms, take that big inhale, and as I exhale, once again, I'm gonna reach up. I'm gonna take an extra breath here because this feels really good and I'm really getting it, and I can start to feel it really in that front hip flexor, maybe even getting up into that fascia net, into my rib cage. So I'm gonna take that extra breath here. And then I'm gonna again close that up. And once again, I'm gonna see if I can maybe go one more step with my arms, still pushing forward from that left hip. Big inhale, and as I exhale, I reach again. Really trying to reach for something over my head, pushing that left hip forward, blowing out that birthday candle. Maybe one more, blowing out that birthday candle. Closing that up. And you could probably go one more time for some people. For others, that might be enough. So we always want to return how we came back. So I'm going to stay on my forearms and I'm going to return myself back to neutral, then come back to my hands. And then I'm going to take it to the other side. So now my left is in front and my right is in back. Once again, you might find that this side is way different than the other side, and that happens. Making sure, once again, that that knee is positioned to what's comfortable for you. So mine may be way different than what yours looks like. Yours might be really far forward. All right, so again, we are just, and again, you can always stay on your hands. You don't have to come to your forearms. You're gonna reach forward to what's comfortable for you. If you're capable of pushing those forearms down, you're gonna do that. And then we're gonna start to walk over to the left. And we only walk to what we can do. And once we feel that first kind of stretch or resistance, we stop there. And I'm gonna focus on now my right hip coming forward. Take that big inhale. As I exhale, I'm gonna reach over as if I'm trying to reach for something. Big inhale, big exhale. And this is a really great way to start opening up those front hip flexors that we just are so compacted in during the day. So this is a great one for this. Go ahead and close that up. Walking if you can. Big inhale, big exhale, reaching. Walking one more time if you can. Same thing, my right hip is focusing on coming forward. I'm reaching up. Really reaching for my fingertips and really trying to push that hip forward. And again, stay in those positions as much as you like. Coming back down to the forearm, maybe you go one more time, or maybe you come on back with me. Coming back to center, and coming back to our hands. So that is a great one. It takes a little bit of time, but I feel like that's a really great movement stretch that you can see a lot of results with. The next one you're gonna do is windshield wipers. So keeping your feet really far apart, keeping your knees really far apart, and just keeping your hands behind you gently. All you're gonna do is you're just gonna swish to one side and swish to the other. So I like to do that first one first before going into this one. Usually this one is just usually icky and sticky and doesn't feel all that great. So kind of coming out of a hip stretch first and then doing this one. This one sometimes feels a little bit more doable. So that's the windshield wiper. This one doesn't have to be done for too long, so this would be a little bit more of that 30 seconds, 3 to 5 times on each side, and just kind of swishing left and switching right. All right. So as I had mentioned prior, you know, sometimes with stretching, it also means strengthening certain parts. This next one is kind of a little bit of both. I love a bridge. And so a bridge can be done more in a strengthening piece, or it could be done more in a relaxed position. So I love to do once in a while a bridge with a yoga block. And so that's what I'm going to do today. You don't have to use the yoga block. You could just work on doing some more of the strengthening piece where you're just focusing on your bridging. And that matters where your feet positionings are, if you want to focus more on your hamstrings or if you want to work on more of your glutes. But with my yoga block today, what I'm going to have you focus on is just taking, and first when we go into our bridge, today I'm about an arm length away, so I can actually touch my heel. So that kind of gives you an idea of where my heels are. I have really long arms, so that might be some difference for other people, but that's kind of where I'm positioning myself here today. I'm going to make sure I am in a pelvic tilt position, so there's no arching in my low back. I'm going to position that, so I'm going to blow out my birthday candle, and I know I'm kind of in that neutral position. From there, I'm going to just squeeze my glutes and lift up, and I'm going to place my yoga block right on that sacrum area. And in this position, it's really not much happening other than just sometimes allowing the hips to stay open. Some people like to bring their feet together and opening it that way. Some people like to just keep it in a neutral position. I tend to keep mine more in a neutral position, and I also allow my arms to stay in a T position as well. This is a great way to end your sessions, start your sessions, middle of your sessions, whatever, but it gets you to really concentrate also on your breathing. So for the next minute, we're going to stay in your bridge, whether that's with or without that yoga block. And I want you to concentrate on that whole breathing technique. So we're breathing out, in through the nose. As we exhale, letting that rib cage come down through our mouth. So for 1 minute, go ahead and practice your breathing in your bridge to help open up. One more big inhale and one more big exhale. And what you might have noticed as you breathe, and for myself, and I said you can always readjust, and that's a good thing, because what we're finding is things are relaxing and melting into different positions. So for myself, as I was doing that, I was able to kind of open up a little bit more into my upper head, neck, and shoulder area. So I was finding that my upper was actually melting further down to the ground. I didn't realize how up I was. So that's a good thing that I focused on, while others find that their hip flexors really start to open. They activate more into their hamstrings and glutes and find the connections from left to right a little bit better. Okay, so removing the yoga block, the last piece we're going to go through is the whole lower back series stretches, and so we're going to be doing those laying down. So this one is a lot of auditory cueing if you're going through it, so just try to cue along as best that you can with that one. So we're gonna start, again, laying on our back. We're gonna start with just knees into our chest. Again, kind of maybe even rocking ourselves side to side. Many of you guys have probably done this in some form of time. It's just the matter of actually doing it. So just rocking back and forth. Arms are then going to float into a T position, and then we're going to find ourselves laying and our feet are on the ground. Once again, kind of going into where we were doing that seated position, I want you to go through that windshield wiper once again. So just swishing left and swishing right. And really seeing, is there a side that seems to be a little bit tighter than the other side? And it's nothing to do anything about, it's just recognizing, wow, this is really a lot tighter than I thought, or maybe I'll want to start with that side. So for me, I usually like to start with my tighter side. I might spend a little bit more time on that side. So mine is always my left. So I'm going to again then bring my knees back into my chest. Both arms are in T position, and I'm going to take both knees over to my right side because I'm going to be stretching my left. Now the key with this here is always allowing your shoulder to stay down. That's going to limit a lot of people's range of motion, but that's what we want. We want to make sure that that shoulder stays pinned. So my feet are stacked. There might be a gap between my knees, and that's okay, because then I have this free right hand that I can gently press downward. And I'm going to use that breathing technique. So every time I exhale that and blow that birthday candle out, I'm going to maybe gently press down into that knee. And for those that really have an excessive upper back, that we call it kyphosis or lordosis in the low back, sometimes that can affect our neck. So sometimes some of us need a pillow or a towel or just rolling up the edge of our mat underneath our head. That might also help keep your shoulder down. So make sure if you prefer a pillow, you have that pillow there. Taking that hand off that knee, what we're going to take is that bottom foot, that right foot. We're going to slide that on top of the left knee now as well. And so that one is kind of replacing what the hand was doing, but this is going to be a little bit deeper now into that left hip and into that low back. That right foot is kind of your hook and your anchor. So again, every time you exhale, that foot might want to just put a little bit more pressure onto that outside of that left knee. Sometimes I also like to take my left arm and I kind of reach it more into that Y position if I feel like I've got that range. And that will also start to stretch a little bit further up into my ribs. And since this right hand is kind of free, sometimes I place that onto my ribs just to remind myself where my ribs are going when I'm breathing. And just adjust as you need, as you breathe, and see if you can get melting a little bit further and stretching those tightness out of there. Unhooking slowly that foot off that knee, having you restack those knees, still over to the right side, however. I'm going to straighten out my left knee, and now I'm going to add a little bit of movement to this. So what I'm going to do is still keep my arms in T position. I'm going to try to tap the ground. I might not even come close, or some will be able to tap, but you're going to maybe tap the ground with the left foot. But then I'm going to bring that left foot straight and I'm going to bring it back to neutral.
but then I'm gonna come back over. And then I'm gonna come back. And then I'm gonna come back over. So just adding a little bit of movement with that. You don't have to, you can just stay static if you feel more comfortable with that. Some people like to add that movement and get a little bit more blood flow. Every time I'm tapping the floor though, what I'm trying to do is trying to get a little bit higher, closer to my right hand, which is in T position. Inhaling as I come back to neutral. Exhaling as I come back over. One more time, inhaling as I come back to neutral, and exhaling as I come back over. Bringing that leg back down, bending that knee, restacking those knees together, and coming back to neutral. Giving those knees a great big hug. So we're rocking those knees back and forth. And we're going to be headed to the other side. So once again, arms into T position. Heading over now to the left. Making sure that those knees are stacked, hips are stacked as best that they can. And there might be that gap once again between those knees. So I'm taking my left hand and placing it on top of my right, focusing on my breathing. Every time I exhale, blowing out that birthday candle, I'm going to gently press that knee downward. Replacing that hand with the bottom foot, so left foot is now coming upon my right knee. And again, just gently trying to push that knee further towards the ground. Maybe I slide my right arm up into that wide position. And again, every time I exhale, just kind of gently come down towards the ground. Taking that foot off, restacking, and adding that movement component now. So extending my right knee, maybe trying to get that foot to come to the floor. Maybe it can't come to the floor, but this is the one where we add that movement piece to it. If it was not uncomfortable with the other side, you could always just focus on holding it and working that toe towards the ground. Otherwise, first goal is trying to get it to the ground, but my second goal would be to bring that toe up towards my hand. So as I inhale, I come up to neutral. As I exhale, I come down, either to the floor or towards my hands. Big inhale and exhale. And again. And exhale. And one more. And exhale. Gently bending that knee, restacking those hips and knees, and bringing our knees back to
rolling ourselves to seated position. And I am a big fan of always ending with a stretch that you enjoy. So that could be where we started with the forward fold halfway lift. It could be the bridge with the yoga block. It could be just laying on your back and just focusing on your breath. Me personally, today I'm gonna do child's pose. So with child's pose, some people need a little bit of a towel or something behind their knees. Personally, I need to make sure that my knees are spread apart and my feet are together. I'm gonna reach out as far as I can, and leading with my chest to elongate my upper back, sinking back as best that I can, and my forehead is gonna come down to the ground.
Sometimes people need a yoga block to do that. And just focusing once again on my inhale, wide, exhale, birthday candle. Slowly coming out of that stretch.
Coming back to seated. I hope today helped open up a little bit of that low back, get some of that stiffness away. Again, feel free to do this as much as you'd like. Repeat any of the series more than once if you'd like. And every week we'll try to focus on something new so that you have altogether a great series to kind of chime into when you feel like that body part needs some attention. So until next time,